Hello and good day everyone. Today I want to share to you one part of ISO 14063:2020, Environmental Communication Strategy Management Guidelines and Examples of Environmental Communication Policies. Let's get down to it. I will talk about part of Chapter 6 which is 6.4 Evaluating Environmental Communications. These are the contents of Chapter 6 which are regarding 6.4.1. Considerations in Evaluating Environmental Communications, and 6.4.2, Environmental Communications Indicators. 6.4.1, Considerations in Evaluating Environmental Communications. In evaluating environmental communications, organizations should allow adequate time for environmental communications to be effective. It also depends on three factors which are, the nature of the communications, the number of interested parties and their concerns, and the type of media used. Next, the organization should also review and assess the effectiveness of the environmental communications, and it could be done through a few considerations. Following the previous statement, there are about 11 considerations in assessing and reviewing environmental communications. A. Its environmental communication policy. B. How the principle of environmental communications is applied. C. Whether the objectives and targets have been achieved. D. The quality and appropriateness of the information provided to target groups and the activities. E. The way in which the environmental communication was conducted. F. The responses of the targeted groups. G. Whether the communication program has shown effective and meaningful dialogue within target groups. H. Whether the procedures and approach were transparent. I. Whether the environmental communication addressed the target group's needs. J. Whether the target group understood the purposes and contents of the environmental communication. And K. Whether appropriate follow-up was provided for the issues raised by target groups. It should be noted that the results of the evaluation can provide a basis for top management review and assessment of its environmental communication policy. Let us move to 6.4.2 regarding environmental communication indicator. What is environmental communication indicator? The main purpose is to monitor whether the previously defined environmental communications goals and objectives have been achieved. The organization should make use of environmental communications indicators. Moreover, it should be carefully designed to allow tracking of critical steps and interests of environmental communication indicators must be simple, precise, easy to understand, and relevant to the process they are related to rather than that. They should also represent qualitative as well as quantitative information. Subsequently, is the example of environmental communications indicator. There is about 6 main example of environmental communications indicator which consist of number of visitors per unit of time, visitors per year, number of award applications, number of awards received, number of articles published by media, rate of response to an environmental survey or questionnaires, rate of complaints about certain environmental aspects, activities, or issues. Next, I will share with you the following part in Chapter 6 which is 6.5 Conducting Management Review and Planning Revision. It will be a simple part compared to Part 6.4. Conducting management review and planning revisions is important as top management may wish to review and revise its environmental communication policy and strategies based on the results of the evaluation. In addition, the review should include assessing opportunities for improvement and the need for change to the environmental communication policy, strategy, and activity. Furthermore, organization should ensure broad involvement of those working on its behalf. Next, is about determining the environmental communication management review. There are about 3 main steps in determining the environmental communication management review. The first is to assess the adequacy of resources provided for environmental communications. The second is through assessing the data collection process. Third, distinguish between improvement necessary to the information provided to interested parties versus the communication process. In sum, when deciding whether to make or not to make a change to environmental policy, strategies, and activities, an organization should consider how the interested parties may perceive the change and communicate the reasons to them. Finally, before the end of this presentation, is the final part which is the quick recap quiz. There will be a few simple quizzes. considerations in assessing and reviewing environmental communication. Please choose 3 out of the 10 considerations. A. Environmental communication policy. B. Environmental management. C. Responses of the targeted group. D. Application on the principle of environmental communications. Good job! The answer to question 1 is environmental communication policy, responses of the targeted group, and application on the principle of environmental communications. What are the 3 main steps in determining environmental communication management review? A. Assess the adequacy of resources provided. B. Distinguish between improvement necessary to the information provided. C. Assess the data collection process. D. Make a change to environmental policy, strategies, and activities. Terrific! The answer to question 2 is, assess the adequacy of resources provided, distinguish between improvements necessary to the information provided, and along with assess the data collection process. For the third question, please choose 2 environmental communications indicators. A. Number of annual salaries received. B. Number of articles published by media. C. Number of job interview applications. D. Number of award applications. Wow, excellent! The answer to question 3 is the number of articles published by the media and the number of award applications. Internal Standard ISO 14063-2020. Environmental Management. Environmental communication is the main reference. With that, thank you for spending your time gaining new knowledge, and hope you have a wonderful day ahead.